On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we give out the very illustrious and wanted awards
Mm.
in Texas football, Dylan. We give out our midseason Longhorns football awards, and we discuss what's been going good for the Longhorns. Of course, maybe a little bit of bad comes into it too, Dylan, but no, all good and positive for the mid-year point of the season. And we make our Week 9 Texas high school football picks. Season's almost done. So football fans, Longhorns, and high school, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. And as always, this video is part of our HornSports Longhorns coverage. Check us out at hornsports.com for all of the latest. Now, Dylan, we must start with these midseason awards. And I gave Dylan a challenge. Either that or Devon just didn't quite understand the assignment of listing out some of these players that he's got. He's got the players, I don't, so it's going to be very conversational today. Dylan, starting at MVP, who are the candidates? Who are the nominees for the Oscars here?
Devin, I do want to preface this beforehand, but we did our most impactful players going into this year. And all three of these guys are on that list of the guys that we drafted. So we did pretty well, kind of narrowing down who we thought it would be. But number one, no surprise to anybody, I got running back Jonathan Brooks, just what he's done. Um, you lose Bijan, you lose Roshan, the year before. And now you got Jonathan Brooks playing up to almost near their level, basically. He's been one of the best players on the field for them. So I've got him in no particular order as one of the candidates. And I've got Devon Sweat. You've seen his improvement off of last year. We wondered who would anchor down that defensive line, and he's been one of the most impactful players up in that front seven. And then I've got the quarterback of the defense, your boy Devin. I have Jalen Ford. What do you think of those three?
Oh boy. It's funny because yet again, I did not come up with candidates. I was just going to go off of what Dylan said and look at the stats and, of course, all of the game reps my eyes have had this season. But Dylan, it's funny because when we talked about it before, those were the three I actually thought about in my head. So I give you applause there. Do you have a winner? Where are you thinking this is going?
Well, just with how the way everything's been playing out, I got to give it to Jonathan Brooks with the ability to kind of give Ewers, you can take the pressure off of Ewers, right, in a certain way, especially when you got that running game working. Plus, this was a big question mark and who was going to take over the running back position between him and CJ Baxter going into it. You didn't really know in the first two games. And then he exploded, and you saw how dynamic he was as well in the Oklahoma game, almost giving them a shot to win, right? So the way that he's been playing, he's top three in a lot of the big categories. He's also tied for first in rushing touchdowns in the Big 12, as well as touchdowns from the line of scrimmage. And he's only second behind TCU's Imani Bailey in yards from scrimmage with 847, only a yard behind Bailey as well. He's got 848. So he's been just incredibly good this year, and really he's impressed me with his vision when it comes to knowing where his blockers are and finding the open gaps.
Yeah, I'm also going to lean towards Jonathan Brooks for a couple of reasons, of course. We give our criteria. I think for Ford, it's no discount to him, Dylan, but I think that the fact that we have two defensive candidates there, it's hard to quantify defensive line play, so that just works against Devondre Sweat in our little choosings here. And Ford has done solid, but yet again, you just got to give it to Jonathan Brooks because if it wasn't for Jonathan Brooks, Dylan, kind of like you were saying, I don't know how the offense would be. Baxter, of course,
Yeah.
is talented in the backfield. CJ Baxter, the freshman. However, he has dealt with some injury concerns. So without Jonathan Brooks, we'd be seeing a lot of Jadon Blue, which, that would be fine too, just given Blue's, track record of, high school prowess. And even in the short times he's had showcasing himself on the field for Texas has not been bad. But Jonathan Brooks has taken the keys to that, Steve Sarkisian Ferrari, Dylan, and has just kind of left. He's the valet driver that never came back with the
Yeah.
car right now. Quinn Ewers, he's got to find those keys, Dylan, for the second half to be successful. Of course,
Yeah.
before the season, we did talk about the need for Ewers to be almost in a Heisman contention in order for Texas to do well. There's still half the season for him to get that, but right now, Jonathan Brooks, I think, is the MVP of the offense and of the team, because yet again, I think without him, the offense would be in a little more shambles right now. But still, Dylan, report card wise, offensive play hasn't been terrible. I mean, if you could improve on red zone, of course, efficiency, it'd be a big different conversation. But overall, I'm going to go with you there, Jonathan Brooks. Now let's move to the offensive player of the year. I mean, that's the same thing right there. I'm just going to
I
hand
was
it.
about to
I'm just
say,
going to hand it to him, Jonathan Brooks. Another contenders, I would say, most likely, Dylan. I don't know if you have different, but I'd say most likely Quinn Ewers, of course. And
Yep.
receivers, I'd probably go Xavier Worthy, unless you wanted to give it
Yep.
to an offensive lineman. But offensive line even has had some issues this season, so I think Worthy would be the second best bet, most likely. How are you feeling there?
Yeah, actually, in no particular order again, but I did have Worthy due to the fact that he leads the team with 34 receptions and 453 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he's second in the Big 12 in receptions and third in receiving yards. So he's been having himself a career. He's been the best receiver for Texas, even with maybe some inconsistent play mixed in there. And then, of course, I've got Quinn Ewers. People can say what they want about it, but he has been performing incredibly well under pressure. I feel like he's been rising to the moments. I know the big thing is Texas did not beat Oklahoma last week, and that definitely doesn't help, right? Especially with Dylan Gabriel leading a lot of the Big 12 categories. So when it comes to like the Heisman race, Dylan Gabriel is obviously above him, right? But for Quinn, right, in his own case, he's been playing incredibly well. 1,700 yards passing with 11 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, 60 yards rushing on 33 carries, but that's 5 touchdowns he has rushing, Devon, as well as, just with the way that he's been able to make things happen with his legs. I know people make all those Chick-fil-A diet remarks, right? He's been
People.
impressing me, and he's second in the Big 12 in completion percentage, right? So he's been improving in all those facets that, especially you talked about going into the season. So I see no reason why he's not a top three offensive player for Texas this year.
Yeah, he's been more efficient, and that's really what I harped on is that completion percentage has to be better, and the interceptions has to come down. Of course, like you said, the Oklahoma game, I'm sure he wishes he had back. However, like we also talked about later, I mean, after those two quick turnovers, Dylan, well, and I guess he had the fumble too, but after the interceptions, his passing was on point, and I think he only had like two incompletions after that point. So he did step up, of course, like you said. Does not help his Heisman odds, but it's still a long season. I agree. He at least deserves a nod and has not played terrible. You Longhorns fans, please put the stakes down. Put the stakes down. Now this is the more fun conversation. I think I should say is the defensive player of the year. I think there's an argument to be had here. I'm sure you're gonna say Jalen Ford. I'm just gonna put that out there. Ford, Tavondre Sweat again. I think even Byron Murphy could deserve it. I don't think you went Byron Murphy. And if I had a third place candidate, at least in terms of just names to throw out, I'd probably say Jahdae Barron. But Dylan, are you aligned with me there?
Yeah, I actually. So no, again, I've got the top two: Devondre Sweat and Jalen Ford, obviously. So those are the two that I really narrowed it down to. But I actually had three extra people, right? So in your case, Jahdae Barron, he's been the most consistent player in that struggling secondary. He's been making a ton of plays. He's got 31 total tackles on the season. Then you have Byron Murphy, who's got 15 tackles. He's got 2.5 sacks, which is second on the team. And he's got that receiving touchdown as well. So he's been all over the place, but he's been very consistent alongside Devondre Sweat up front. And then Devin, I actually want to throw his name in here because of the way he's been playing, but the freshman linebacker, Anthony Hill, he leads the team in stacks. And how Coach Kwiatkowski's been playing him as that feral animal all over the field. I have him in here because of that big game against Alabama, right, where he was running all over the place. He had some freshman mistakes, but he was able to bounce back a lot with his speed and stay in line with Milrow and make, the game almost hell for him at that point. So and he's got 25 tackles, which is fourth on the team, right? So Anthony Hill's been playing incredibly well, and it's just his freshman year. So those were the top five guys. But for me, with just how the defense has been playing, it's tough. But I just feel like with Tavondre Sweat, the way he's been playing up front and just making his presence felt, even if it doesn't show up in the stat sheet, I think he's been the best player on this defense for Texas, and more than likely might be the highest player drafted for Texas, at least defensively going into the NFL draft. So he's really impressed me in his fifth year, and that's why I kind of give him the edge over Jalen Ford.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dylan at the end of the year, Jalen Ford, if he continues on his track, I think he wins the award. Very very
Mm.
important award from the Devon-Messinger pick.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I
So much.
agree. At least mid-season, I want to give props when I can. So I'm going to pick Sweat here as well. Yet again, that guy has some meat to him. I mean, every game, I remember sitting up yet again. The Baylor press box is very high up, Dylan. You need for sure your best binoculars that you can bring. But one guy you can see without those is T'Vondre Sweat. Those Baylor offensive linemen must have been 100 pounds lighter than that man. He just caused havoc. Like you said, doesn't really necessarily show up in the box score, but just his ability to plug up lanes and just create havoc up front. Of course, the Oklahoma game wasn't necessarily the greatest, but then again, Texas didn't really allow too much running other than, Gabriel scrambles. Part of that, of course, is also on the linebacker crew. I think a lot of Texas's inabilities to stop running quarterbacks so far has been an inability to stay in lanes from linebackers per se. I wouldn't necessarily just attribute that to the defensive line. Of course, they do get a healthy amount of credit and that not so great success right there. But I can't put that all on them. I'm gonna go Sweat too. Yes, hard to put numbers on defensive linemen, so I'll probably choose my pick at the end of the year. But has been good to see. Now Dylan, most improved / comeback. I put the comeback there. I'm gonna give my answer. I mean, you can give a candidate, but my answer's got to be Adonai Mitchell, the Georgia transfer. Of course, did not play too much last season. I believe was injured for a good portion of it. Comes back to Texas, the great state of Texas. I believe he's from Missouri City. Comes back. Something magical happens, Dylan, when family can come and watch your games. I mean, he's been putting up numbers. And let's see, I got the stats right here. So far this season, 25 catches for 354 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yet again, not anything that is going to blow your socks off. But if you've been watching the games, he has been that, as Dylan likes to term, Jason Witten safety blanket from the wide receiver position. When Texas needs to move the chains on third downs, seems like Mitchell's been open and has been great for the Texas offense this season. So that's my pick for comeback / most improved player.
Yeah, I definitely went mostly the most improved route, but if we were going off specifically comeback player of the year, Adonai Mitchell would definitely take the cake in that one. But on the most improved side, based off just how I was looking at Devon, I had Jonathan Brooks, T'Vondre Sweat, and Quinn Ewers. In Jonathan Brooks' case, you saw him in the Alamo Bowl game against Washington when Bijan was not playing and Roshan was not playing. He did not look the same that he is right now, right? Especially like I talked about with his improved vision. He's gotten better as the season progressed. And with that speed, it's been very impressive. Then Sweat, we didn't know who would anchor this defensive line. He's impressed. And then Quinn Ewers, I honestly kind of want to give it to him. Maybe even comeback player of the year. You can make a case just with the injuries that he sustained and then how much better he has looked, again, under pressure in key moments this season and going into Tuscaloosa against Alabama and getting a win, even if this is a team that isn't Alabama of old, it's still very impressive. So in a most improved category, I got to go Jonathan Brooks again. Comeback, I got to agree with Adonai Mitchell that you talked about.
Nice. Now I'm going to go with the quickest award, Dylan. Yet again, the season still has half of pretty much play to be held. I mean, Coach of the Year on that Texas staff, I'm giving it to Bo Davis, Dylan. And if you want to argue with me, you can argue with me. But just because that has been the position group that has received the most positive talk at this point in the season, and of course he's responsible for it, there are things that he could, see more of. Sacks. If that were to happen, I think it'd be unanimous. You could probably argue for a couple different groups, but I'm going to give it to Bo Davis in large part because he's wearing sweatshirts at every game, no matter how hot it is. So, yeah. What say you?
I like that pick. I actually had Coach Sark on here. I think he's been better than he was last year. Texas went 8-5 last year, 5-7 in his first year. You've seen the continued improvement. He beat Coach Saban, his former employer, in his own building, which is very impressive. Obviously, there's been some play clock management you like to see improve, but I think the play calling and the fact that just the intensity of this team been completely different, and that is a testament to the coaching staff. I also had running back coach DeRaud Choice, Devon. I mean, he's leaving. He had Bijan and Roshan, right? I know I keep saying this, but then you see Jonathan Brooks just come out onto the scene as a sophomore, and CJ Baxter's looked good when healthy, right? And he'll continue to improve as well. So I really like the DeRaud Choice here, just with how he's been able to kind of get the full potential out of Jonathan Brooks this season.
I think that's very fair. Now, speaking of fair, High school football picks, Dylan. We were not too fair
Mm,
last weekend. I don't want to even talk about it. This is week 9, of
no.
course. All matchups are ranked. This week's going to be more of a lightning round just because of the lack of ranked matchups. The first of which, though, banger. I was very tempted to go. Had my car
Mm.
not been such a problematic, Dylan, maybe I would have made the trip. 4A D1, number 7, Stephenville versus number 4, China Spring. Now for Stephenville, they got junior quarterback Ryan Gafford and senior running back Tate Maruska. But, Dylan, when you have a quarterback that you're playing, that first name is Cash,
Mm.
you might want to check out the ATM because he's going to be printing
Yeah.
out some dough on Friday. I got China Spring.
Devin, you convinced me just with that. I got to agree with China Spring. I think this offense um, is just next level. It's going to be a close game. There's going to be a lot of points. Both
It should be a
defenses
great game.
have struggled a bit. Yeah, it will be a great game, but I'm going to have to give the edge to China Spring. Then our next one, we have 4AD2 number 7 Hampshire Fannet at number 2 Silsby. Devin, this is another game that I think is going to be high scoring as well. Silsby's averaging 47 points per game. And they have a guy named Trey Kibbles. Don't know if you've heard of him, Devin.
I
Great
have.
name as well. At running back, he's a big reason why they're scoring so many points, especially in the run game. Gonna be a lot for Hampshire to overcome, with just how explosive the Silsby offense has been. So, got to go Silsby at home.
What's that song say? Is it Silsby, Grillsby? I got Silsby
Uh,
here. Junior quarterback Michael Mosier. 20
mm,
touchdowns to 0 interceptions, Dylan. I know you like Kibbles, and I agree. Kibbles is part of my pick here. He's nearing 1,000 rushing yards on the season. Not quite there yet, but he has 14 rushing touchdowns. I got Silsby. In the last game we have, number 5, if you like Coldplay, Paradise, banger, at number 7, Brock. Now, as much as I like
yeah.
Coldplay, this is a tough pick for me to make. Brock has 3 losses, Dylan, this year. Not too great for Brock, but they are to Pleasant Grove, Wimberley, and Gunter. And I think the key here, Dylan, is junior quarterback Brody Woods. For Brock, he has thrown 14 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. If he's going to want to win this game, he's going to have to get that ratio a little more in place of where it should be and stay out of that turnover column.
Yeah. And on this other side of the ball, Devin, for Paradise, QB Austin Iglesias, he's been playing very well. But this Brock defense, at this point, Devin, it is a cycle of them struggling in the beginning and then picking up pace later on because they've got 3 straight wins and they've won 78 to nothing, 61 to nothing, and 63 to 3. Paradise, on the other hand, have not allowed more than 10 points all season. So this could be a defensive slugfest, but I got to give it to Brock at home here.
And more importantly than our opinions, who is your Texas MVP? And which high school game will you be watching this weekend? Don't forget to check us out at hornsports.com and have a great rest of your day.